He's Jake's brother.
Well, the crazy thing is about who was upset with the Veterans Affairs, and I thought, he might help the veterans. I don't know. Might get one thing right.
Yeah. Okay, this fellow and my second wife, the mother of my two oldest boys, have been cohabiting for about 5 years. I just heard
Yes.
that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Stu told me.
Fucking
Yeah.
George.
Yeah, fuck you.
And this is
George Hunter, yeah?
George Hunter. And there was a black dude named Wally Hawkins, who I knew from the North Beach days.
Yeah.
I lived at his grandmother's house, where he resided at the corner up one block of Vallejo and Montgomery Street. Maddie was her name. And Wally did a bit of singing and hung out with and traveled around with John Hendricks. And whenever he used to see George, like if George walked into a party, Wally would say, "Oh, here comes Georgie the Hunter."
Yeah. Where the bitches
George
at?
hated him.
Yeah.
And then I never knew George was a bigot. In fact, one time while we were together, I mentioned Wally, and he called Wally a giant spliv. And I said,
A
I thought to
squib?
myself, George,
Yeah, fuck
you
you.
ain't
A
after
squib?
my heart,
Yeah. Was it
Which one
a
is-
squib?
Spliv. That's
Spliv.
another derogatory name for blacks, obviously. Did you ever hear that expression?
No, I haven't, to be honest with you.
Now, I never have outside of hunting.
I've put
Okay.
quite a few, but not that one.
Well,
Okay.
hey.
Wilhelm now wears, Wilhelm weighs about 90 pounds. He's hooked up to oxygen, he's fighting cancer, living up in Lake County. And so he was in a wheelchair when they did, a year or two ago when they did their,
Reunion.
2 years ago when they did the Virginia City. Charlatans. Richard is a society band leader. After the Charlatans, Richard had a group called the Powell Street Jazz Band, and they worked down around Powell Union Square
Yeah.
on the street. And Richard had played in John Handy's Freedom Band back in those days. Richard was a state college. He was in the music department and played mainly clarinet, also played some tenor saxophone. And Richard also was a tap dancer. And they were big draws downtown, in the early busking days for everybody. So Richard's still around, George is around. Ferguson was the first guy to die from diabetes problem. And this piano, you can't see it, somewhere in the back of this piano is in letters, Woodburn, about this deep and about this high, it read, stamped in there, made in occupied Japan. I mean, a true period.
Yeah.
Sure.
You mean this lighter wood on the slant or the?
Yeah.
Is that the piano you moved around in the
That was
van?
a piano, it just fit right across, it was just the width of the Volkswagen bus.
Now, Jim Marshall, he's alive?
Yeah, no.
No, he passed away,
Yeah.
was it 8 years ago?
They said 2011?
2011.
Okay. Many years ago, back in New York, a lady in Kew Gardens was brutally attacked and stabbed to death, and all the people, so many people saw it out of their apartment and didn't
Oh, yes.
call.
What was the
And there was
name?
I
nothing
think so, I
there.
remember that.
Nobody wanted to get involved.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And it created a furor. I mean, it hit the wire
Yeah, because
services
they saw,
all
yeah, I
over,
saw it,
all
I
over
saw
the
it.
world.
They didn't know who to reach.
So, about a year later, some lady has been getting these, back in New York, has been getting these dirty phone calls, these obscene phone calls. And she goes to the police and they put a tap in her phone, and she picks up with this for months on end so that they can find the person. She happens to be at a cocktail party one night, and a fellow approaches her and says hi and blah, 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 and she recognizes the voice. That's the guy. She calls the cops, and they take the guy and they bust him and they put him over in Rikers Island. Okay? She gets very upset because she didn't like what they did with him. She felt that they should give this guy who's got problems, that he should, get some kind of treatment, not just be thrown in jail.
Kitty, her name was Kitty
Kitty
Genovese or
That
something
was
like
it,
that.
Kitty Genovese.
Yeah.
Kew Gardens, K-E-W. Okay. Well, because she was this anti-apathetic person and dealing with this, the news comes out of New York and was in under one of the wire service bylines. Well, the guy who was making the phone calls was Jim Marshall.
I remember that. I think
Okay.
I remember him telling me that.
Oh my
So
God.
in 1978, my son Nathaniel is just a newborn. He's less than a week old. He and his mother and I come down from Sonoma County to Greek Theater.
Right.
And it was the year that, what's her name? Judy Collins had just come out with her album for Lester Young, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat.
Right.
And so when Stacy and I show up, I'm carrying the baby. First thing that happens is an old black lady named Elizabeth Cotton, a folk singer who wrote Freight Train, going so fast. I don't know who she is. This lady walks up to me and says, "Young man, you're not carrying that child, right?" And she took him away from me, and I didn't get him back for a half hour or so.
Yeah.
So I'm walking around the back, and Marshall is in the corner. And I haven't seen him in some years. And Marshall calls me. He's with some high-powered Hollywood people. Hey, come over here, blah, blah, blah. That's why he knew me as Steve Martin. Hey, Dick, tell these people what my nickname was back in high school days. I said, oh, you mean hose nuts? Well, he's not pleased. Oh, that's such a card, you said to the people. No, you tell them what. I said, oh, we're talking about, you mean Tasmanian Devil. Well, Marshall, there was a group of us that all hung together. And Marshall lived either on Turk or Golden Gate on the lower end of Fokker to visit there, and at the bottom of a hill. Lived there with his mom. And we would never drive by down the street and drop them, because it was one way the other direction. So we never dropped them in front of his house. We let them walk up the top of the hill. And there was a grocery store there. And there are always some guys, it being a black neighborhood, black guys, hanging on the corner, drinking from, brown paper bags. And I think it was either James Stevens or Frank Kellum, who both were black. One of the two of them threw out, hey, you fucking niggers or something. When Marshall gets out of the car, and the guys with the bottle, they turn and they look, and we're driving away, and they see Marshall. And they start to run. Marshall runs down the hill. And so it got to be, every time Marshall, before the car even stopped, Marshall would be halfway out the door and running. And he got so fast that he became, that's why we nicknamed him the Tasmanian Devil, because he went out for cross country in the high school and became a cross country city champion, and then went off to do the state, and it was just from, you know, Tasmania. But when I said, hey, what have you been doing? You know, because he went back to New York.
Right.
He had been doing the jazz people, and then he did a lot of photographic work with Martin Luther King in those early marches. He really covered
Jim
the
Marshall
civil
did?
rights. Marshall did, yeah. Jazz in the San Francisco, that's how we started out shooting jazz people, and then followed the civil rights, was back in New York. And he said to me, oh, man, I said, what have you been doing? He said, oh man, I got busted back there. And I said, and did time in Rikers. And I said, oh, what'd you get busted for? Well, I had already seen this thing in the newspaper.
How many times did he go to jail?
Huh?
How many times did he go to jail?
It was the one time. For, well, I mean, that was one time there.
Right.